ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Azeroth Daily for the 5th of January 2011. My name is Total Biscuit, bringing you your daily dose of WoW news and comment. In the headlines today, the Mobile Armory application for the iPhone and iPad has been updated. It actually now works with World of Warcraft Cataclysm, so it's a handy update I tend to find. It includes the new items, the Goblin and Worgen, as well as the new race class combinations, so you can actually use the bloody thing again. Also, it's had various UI improvements, and it is available for free, the link to which is in the description below this video. Unfortunately, one of its new features was not support for Android. As to why that is, I couldn't imagine, and I think that's probably something they need to be looking into sooner rather than later. Blizzard has released yet more community news on its EU website, including information from Battlecraft.it, the Italian website, which is delving into the lore behind the elves. Also, a Hungarian website, WoW Hungary, takes a look at halls of origination, as well as the Czech site, wowhoneyweb.cz, examining the WoW talent system. All this and more, including a roundup of comics and handy forum threads that don't suck, available in the description below this video. And with that, it's time for your Daily Blues. Zahim responds several times to criticism of the Dungeon Finder and reveals a few interesting details about possible future development. He says that they would love to implement better ways for the Dungeon Finder to detect if players know what they're doing, and they have some long-term design goals in mind for this purpose. Not quite ready to share any information, unfortunately. However, he does go on to describe the current system as having a real problem within it, in that it does not tell players what they did wrong, and they're looking into systems, ways and means to try and keep players informed as to the mistakes they made in a more direct and easy to understand fashion in future. Rixian responds to a thread in which someone is asking Lightwell, what's a Lightwell, and complaining that nobody is actually clicking the bloody thing. Rixian says they're fairly happy with its performance so far, but they're continuing to monitor feedback as to its usage, but also reminds people that it's a good idea to actually tell the party that it's there, and indeed maybe give them a gentle prod as to actually using it. Although he does go on to say that he doesn't expect everyone to fully understand because there are still people that stand in the fire. And with that, it's time for your daily grind. It's a Hillsbrad theme this week, as you can probably tell. We've had quite a few quests from Hillsbrad, and this one is a follow-up to the stuff that you saw earlier. You've got to do the whole quest chain with Warden Stillwater, as well as do the quest with the Flesh Shaper, in order to unlock a quest called Little Girl Lost, which actually involves finding Johnny Awesome, who you will find in this area sobbing next to an imprisoned Forsaken. You let the Forsaken out by finding the key, which takes about 20 freaking kills to get. So much for 100% drop rate. And then you lead the two of them on a quest of revenge for Twinkles, Johnny Awesome's freaking star pony thing. You can even actually move next to the corpse of the star pony, whose legs are sticking out of the ground, and he will bawl about it and get very upset. It is comedy gold, ladies and gentlemen. That is the fate of Johnny Awesome. And with that, it's time for your weekly feature. It's the Court of Law. Today we're going to be talking about one of the main antagonists in World of Warcraft. He was a nasty piece of work in Vanilla, and he's trying to destroy Hyjal in Cataclysm. Yes, indeed, folks, it is Ragnaros. Ragnaros is one of the 4 elemental lords, holding dominion over the element of fire. As with all elemental lords, Ragnaros is a servant of the Old Gods and fought against the Titans for dominion over Azeroth, a battle which the Old Gods and their servants ultimately lost. Ragnaros was banished to the elemental plane, where eventually a war broke out between the various elemental factions, which lasted 5 millennia. This battle was known as the Elemental Sundering. It was during this time that the lieutenants of Ragnaros, Geddon and Gar, betrayed Thundaran, the Prince of the Air, and allowed Ragnaros to deliver a fatal blow and feast upon Thundaran's essence. Ragnaros, concerned about his waistline and unable to walk it off, gave the remainder of Thundaran's essence to Geddon and Gar in the form of the bindings of the Windseeker. Ragnaros was successful in keeping dominion over the elemental plane, in which he constructed Sulfuron Keep, which until very recently remained outside of the mortal realms. Azeroth was free from the destructive influences of Ragnaros until around 300 years ago, when the Dark Iron clan, involved in a war of aggression against the Bronzebeard and Wildhammer clans, attempted to summon elemental forces to tip the balance in their favor. The Dark Iron leader Thurazan was successful in calling forth aid, but it would be his undoing as Ragnaros burst forth, shattering the Red Ridge Mountains and creating the volcano of Blackrock. Thurazan was killed, and the rest of the Dark Iron dwarves were enslaved by Ragnaros in the Blackrock depths. They believe him to be an old god, which as we know is not the case. Ragnaros and his minions engaged in a war with the orcs of Blackrock Spire, the dominion of Nefarian himself. Using an unstoppable army of golems, Ragnaros intended to seize control of the entirety of Blackrock Mountain. However, he was unsuccessful. Seeing the grave threat of Ragnaros, heroes from the Alliance and Horde ventured deep into the molten core beneath Blackrock Mountain and were eventually able to banish Ragnaros back to the elemental planes once more. Unfortunately for the peoples of Azeroth, Ragnaros was not destroyed and has reappeared, along with his fortress of Sulfuron Keep, deep in the heart of Mount Hyjal. Now having set aside his previous war with Nefarian and Blackrock Mountain, Ragnaros appears to be allied with Deathwing, and their aim is to burn Nordrassil to ash. He wields Sulfuras, the Hand of Ragnaros, a terrible warhammer of flaming red elementium and lava-like runes. A strike from this weapon turns its victim into nothing but a pile of ash. Some may be confused at the presence of multiple Sulfuras weapons within Azeroth, but this is in fact misconstrued. In reality, the mortal versions of Sulfuras are merely copies, Sulfuron hammers crafted with a hard black crystal known as the Eye of Sulfuras, created when the heat and pressure of the true weapon solidifies the ash of its victim. There is only one true Sulfuras, and it is far too large to be wielded by any mortal, not to mention a wee bit hot. And with that, it's time for the mailbox. This one comes in from Josh, who asks, I've played on and off WoW for about 5 years, and I was wondering if I should come back, because after watching your beta videos, I've started to have the urge to, even though I was quite a failure at the game, because I've never gotten a guy to max level. I've quit because I've gotten bored, or in so many cases, new games have come out. My brother has been playing along, as I have, but never quit as much as I have, so he got Kata right away, and he goes to school at night, so I jumped on and made a Goblin Rogue, and had quite a fun time playing again. But I'm still worried, because thanks to your videos, I also want to try DC Universe, because it looks fun, and I was hoping to get your opinion on the matter. Well, it depends exactly what bored you in the first place. I quit WoW so many times before level 60, it wasn't even funny, because I found questing to be dull. Now, questing's got an awful lot better since then. It's got a lot more variety, it's much more interesting. It's more tied to the way that a single-player RPG works, trying to engage you in the story in a more direct way, using cutscenes, using scripted events, using a lot of variety to spice up what would otherwise be a boring kill, collect, or whatever. So, if you were bored and never reached max level because the quests were dull, which I have to assume is the case, because that's the majority of leveling content, then I would think it's probably worth giving it another bash, simply because they have done an awful lot to make it more interesting. It might not be enough. It may indeed actually bore you as well, but there's no harm in trying. If you get bored again before you reach level 80, then honestly, I'd say the game isn't for you and you should probably try something else, and that's fine, really. Like I said, the only reason I even got to level 60 in the first place was because I had a guild egging me on. If I'd done it solo, there's no way. I wouldn't have even bothered continuing to play WoW, and then where would we be at that point? This one comes in from Jake C, who says, what do you think will happen to WoW and its community over the next few years? WoW has an outdated game engine for years now, and with new MMOs such as DC Universe and Guild Wars 2 coming out in the near future, WoW is having less and less to offer in regards to contending with these newer titles. Do you think WoW 2 is a possibility? Well, it's always a possibility, isn't it? But I don't really see it being all that likely. I mean, as far as I'm aware, Blizzard is working on Titan, which they have confirmed. They confirmed that Titan exists. We don't know what it is, but there are a lot of rumors floating around that it's some kind of MMO FPS. I don't know if they would even bother with a World of Warcraft 2, honestly. I think it's more likely that they do a mass replacement on the existing engine and try and upgrade the entire game as they go through, as opposed to just developing a new sequel. I mean, the sequel would take so long. Think about it. If you're developing it from the ground up with an entirely new engine, and also, at the end of the day, the game isn't dying. The game's still got a load of subscribers. It's not going to die for ages. Hell, the original EverQuest isn't even dead yet. I think it's more likely that they'll just bring out another product that does address the current generation of MMO players that want something more than merely press button, cast Frostbolt. And I think that's what Titan's going to be all about. It will be the next generation of MMOs, as it were. But that doesn't mean that everybody has suddenly gone off the current generation. Indeed, you can look at the numbers to see that that is not the case. So, no, I don't think they'll develop a WoW 2. Certainly not in any kind of near time span. I mean, if I were to ever expect one, I wouldn't even expect one in the next half a decade, really. I would think that it would go on much, much longer than that. So, yeah, there's your answer to that, I suppose. Coming in from Bloodsquelch right here. I'm a Cataclysm baby. I'm working towards my first level character. I want to ask you about etiquette. Specifically, how should I interact with other players since I frankly don't know all that much about the game? So far, I feel that I've done a reasonable job. I let people know when I'm trying something unfamiliar and I ask them to tell me if I'm being stupid. I take credit for my blunders, ask questions if I don't understand something, and I always assume that any mistakes are my own before I blame somebody else. However, I'm starting to reach the higher levels and I'm not entirely sure what level of knowledge is expected of me. I feel fairly comfortable in combat. I roll a Frost Mage because it's awesome, and I'm confident in my ability to fulfill my role, including crowd control, without drawing aggro and standing in the fire. However, now I'm getting concerned with things like knowledge of bosses, what they drop, dungeon layouts, etc. For example, am I expected to know exactly what drops are the best for me in every dungeon? Is it okay if I need someone to explain a boss fight before I go in, or am I expected to do my research beforehand? I expect to do this sort of research when I hit endgame content, but I'm a little overwhelmed by the vast amount of information I have to process right now. Do you have any advice on that matter? It's always helpful to at least look at it. I mean, the best thing that I would say to do is pop over to Wowpedia or pop over to Wowhead and have a quick look at the boss you're about to do. Just at least get a vague feel for its abilities. You don't have to know it inside out, because the content is not really hard, especially not the normal mode stuff. I mean, some of the Outlands dungeons can be a little bit tricky in places, but at the end of the day, the chances are you're going through with extremely experienced people. Most of them will be rolling alts for maybe the second time, maybe even more than that, and they will know what to do anyway. So it just comes down to the basic principles. CC, don't pull aggro, don't stand in the fire, and of course, take responsibility for your own mistakes and try to avoid them. And there's nothing wrong with asking. And if people react badly to that, say, oh my god, when you've at least done a reasonable amount of research before you go in there, then I think they're being unreasonable, and you should probably look for a guild. Honestly, a guild that's a little bit more accommodating for somebody who's just started the game. It sounds like you're on the right track, though. You can do more than most, let me put it that way, and that already puts you at a fairly high level to begin with. It is really all about learning, and by learning from your own mistakes, and of course by using the various resources available to you. But again, try not to overwhelm yourself with it. Just read a little bit, get a basic understanding, and that's usually enough. Okay, folks, that's been done for the day. Thanks for watching Azeroth Daily. Please remember to click the like button if you like this video, and of course click the dislike button if you dislike this video. That's what they're there for, and it helps either way. Thanks a lot, guys. I'll see you next time.